So there's always another side of addressing food issues and weight problems that go on and on and on for years and years. And a lot of the times, people in the industry who are trying to help people solve these issues don't realize that for a lot of people, they may not even realize they don't really want these issues solved. In psychology, this is called a secondary gain. The struggle itself gives someone purpose. And I see this all the time with people with substantial weight loss issues and food issues that have gone on for years and years and years, and they think they want a solution and they think they want a way out of it, but actually the psychology of it reveals itself that they actually would be lost without having the food issues or the weight issues. So over time, they get so obsessed, they get so used to obsessing about their food issue or their weight issue that they can no longer function without having that issue. So you say you want to overcome your food issues or your weight issues or your eating issues, but having those issues to focus on becomes part of the mental and emotional processing crutch you use to actually function overall. You would actually feel lost without the problem itself and without the comfort the actual problem brings. People will obviously rebel against that and say, my eating issue doesn't bring me comfort. My weight issue doesn't bring me comfort. But in essence, it does. It's called a secondary gain, psychologically speaking. So you unknowingly perpetuate the problem because you need to have it as a grounding force. When life is finally balanced in real terms, you'll no longer need it and it will just fall away. You'll be able to lose the weight, you'll be able to stop with the food and eating issues, etc., etc. But the truth is, for some of you out there, and for trainers and coaches out there that need to know this, constantly bringing up your pain without employing any skills to heal it makes you feel entitled and virtuous. So playing the victim status actually has a role to play in terms of your overall function. It gives you a purpose. So you tell yourself you are working at healing from your food issues or your weight issues, but in essence, you aren't. You're merely working at working. So you're constantly have the problem in order that you can constantly be working with the problem, but not at solving the problem. You become so connected to the obsession or the issue of food or weight that there's no space left to connect with yourself. And that's why you never ever solve the problem. So the problem is still the problem with food or weight or whatever, but not in the way you think it is. Because having the problem gives you a purpose of sorts. As twisted as that is, I've seen it time and time again, and it's discussed in many of the books on people with food, eating, and weight issues that they say they want to solve, but really having these issues as a constant in their life gives them that one constancy that they need, even though they say they want to solve it and heal from it. And it also gives them a purpose, because without the problem, it's often a scary proposition to not have the problem in its place, because then the problem leaves people free of excuses for where they're at in life. And that becomes a subconscious scary thing as well. So it's a real delicate thing to discuss, but it's an important thing to discuss. That sometimes the weight issues and the food issues are masking something else. And the issues themselves, you become so used to obsessing about them that you can't function without them. Where would you be without the food issue to solve? Where would you be without the weight issue to solve? Now, it sounds counterintuitive, but for a lot of people, it gives them a psychological purpose every day, because they have something to rail against, something to fight against, something to complain about, and something to victimize over. So I'm not saying that applies to everybody with these issues. Obviously, it doesn't. But it does apply to a good amount of people, and it usually takes an outside source to get someone to face that. So a real delicate matter, but people with long-term food and weight issues, oftentimes they become psychologically connected to needing those issues, and that's something nobody really wants to talk about, but it's true nonetheless, and it's discussed in research, it's discussed in psychology, it's discussed constantly for people with food and weight issues. So that's the straight up scoop on that. The other side of these things for people who want to solve these issues is facing where you will be without them and that you actually want to get to that place. So just a heads up, and some psychological elements to food, eating, and weight issues that sometimes people don't consider, which they really need to consider. So keep that in mind moving forward. Always meant to help, never meant to it's always meant to be something to consider in a helpful way, even though it may seem like it's calling people out. But oftentimes there's many sides to an issue, and we have to address all of them in order to get to the heart of the matter. So keep in mind, people with ongoing years and years of food issues and weight issues may in fact be that they are grounded by having those issues as having a constant in their life and giving them a purpose. So something to consider. And of course, I expect a lot of that will be met with a lot of blowback, but it is well documented, and it is something to consider. And not just for people with food or weight issues, but people who struggle with other issues as well. They actually need the struggle as a constant in their life. Anyway, that's enough on that. It may resonate with some of you. It may resonate with some trainers and coaches out there, in that you can't often help people who truly don't want to be helped. So you have to keep those things in mind, and that's just part of the psychological elements to food issues and weight issues. And hopefully people will learn from that, keep it in mind, and use it appropriately.